Hello and welcome to Good Games Well Played, episode 192. I'm Clint, aka JCM. With us this week is Isli.
Yo.
And Messiah.
Hello.
And we were off last week, but not too much happened between our last recording and now. Obviously, we finished some games in the background and whatnot, but news-wise, it wasn't a whole lot. One of the things I did see, we talked about when FF7 Rebirth was coming to PC, the creators like, please, no lewd mods on PC. And there's a dinosaur horror game coming out for PS5 that got announced a bit ago. And the developers that said the reason that there's no PC version of that game is because they don't want vulgar versions of the main character created. Because I think the main lead's a female character, so they're like, hey, we don't want those, so we're just not going to do a PC port.
That was the dumbest reason, though, and I think they're just saying that to drive up like marketing for their game because their main character is like their game has nothing like uniquely. Nothing super unique about it to the point where you would be like, oh, yes, I'm going to make lewd art of this main character. Like, it's not a major series. It's like, why would people care?
I think underestimate the internet.
Yeah, I think because it's like in FF, it's like they're not, the models themselves aren't like on real people, made real people's perhaps. So maybe it's like, it's a smaller developer as well. So they did 2023's Quantum Error. And it's like, maybe it's like, who knows how the model behind the character and the VA would be like, oh man, I don't like maybe they were excited to be in a game, who knows, or something. It's like their first video game and you're like, okay, here's a bunch of nude models of the character up on the shop or whatever. It's like that'd be weird. But I just thought it was kind of funny.
Yeah, but I appreciate their optimism, but there's literally nothing stopping anybody from getting that game on PC and modding it.
Yeah,
look what has happened to Ocarina of Time over the years. Like, if there's a will, there's a way. Somebody, I imagine now, because they've come out and said this, somebody's just going to do it out of spite.
Right, exactly.
They're going to ROM it, and then they're going to mod it. Like,
well, they got people that do that. Just, they got no life anyway. So it's like,
yeah, exactly. So it's like, I appreciate your optimism, but you're really underestimating the internet. It's gonna happen, but I suppose it's only going to happen in very like 4chan-esque like niche little markets, and it's not going to be like widely publicized, or the mods are going to be up on Nexus mods or something like that. But I appreciate being optimistic, I guess.
I don't know. It still made me laugh because I was just like, dude, commenting on this means it will happen now.
Yeah.
And your game didn't seem like, I'm not saying the game's going to fail, but it wasn't going to be like the next Souls game or something. It's probably not big enough to be anything like that. So it's like, if you just didn't comment on it, you probably would have had a better shot at not having nude shit posted.
Yeah, it's like the fear of it willed it into existence.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like, would you still have broken it if I didn't say anything? Yeah, I just thought it was kind of silly. Then we also had the week we were out, No Man's Sky showed the Worlds Part 2 update, but it has since come out since we didn't record previously. But yeah, it's a big old update. I saw the 20 gig download, billions of new solar systems, trillions of new planets. I think like reworked
billions and trillions.
Yeah. So I haven't gone in there to see like because I think it also has some other overhauls as well. A new terrain system. So terrain will be more detailed and far more varied with huge mountains and these other massive features. Okay, so it's like bunches, but I haven't booted it up. I'd be curious to go in. I need to go in and check it out. Just fly around, go to some planets. It says water reacts physically to the world around it. Creatures wade through it. There's little dimples in the water. So yeah, they did some overhauls to the water physics as well. Shadows are more detailed. Light flickers through the leaves. Caves are dark and immersive. Oceans reflect the clouds and stars to create these beautiful sunsets and night skies. Good luck on low-end computers.
My computer is sobbing.
Yeah, but it's like it's cool to see they get more massive updates. But now it's starting to. I'm curious if it's going to grow up to like I think I just offloaded. Did I get rid of Baldur's Gate on my P? I was like cleaning up some Steam stuff, putting things on my other hard drive. I think I might have just moved Baldur's Gate 3 since I still have my Dirge playthrough to finish. And did I push it off? Yeah, I moved that to that thing's huge. I wonder how big No Man's Sky is now. Let's see. How big is this this game? This game is, nope, that is not what I wanted. It is, it's not that big. I mean, I guess it was just a full re-download of it to update the code. Okay. Because the update was like 20 gigs. But they only do that when like the code changes and you have to Like
you have to basically re-download the game.
Yeah, re-down the whole thing. I have to pop into that maybe today. I'll check it out.
I haven't played that in so long. I mean, it's already a completely different game than when I very first played it when it came out on PS4, but I feel like even when I played it again after many, many, many updates later on, I feel like at this point it's just a completely different game again.
Yeah, I'm still like early on, and like I haven't progressed too far in any of the main missions. Like I do a bit of the quest lines, but I'm not like I found my first outpost on a planet. I set it up. I did some things, but I'm not like I found about another traveler who's like me or whatever, and then but I haven't done a whole lot. Like I got the first freighter they give you. I tried finding a bigger freighter, taking over a pirate freighter. It was like a way to try to get that an S-class one. It's like, oh, I'll give it a shot, but I was like, okay, never mind. I'm not gonna do it anymore. But I haven't done too much, so I should hop back in there and check it out. But and yeah, other than that, let's see. Xbox. So Microsoft had a investor call, and they basically were the summation of the call was essentially that Game Pass is doing really great, but their hardware sales suck ass. Like they're down by a lot. Like Game Pass grew by like 30% quarter over quarter, which is crazy. Obviously driven by like COD and Indiana Jones and whatnot, really kind of pushing those games. It's like, okay, well, let's see how long it's fine to say you grew, but how long are you going to retain? You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure anytime Netflix has a new season come out for a popular show, like, okay, when Stranger Things next season comes out, will their user base spike up? And then after, a week or two, will it drop back down? So it's like, okay, you've got a high Game Pass, turnout, but how many people are going to, what's the longevity of that user base?
I imagine a lot of people probably treat all their subscriptions the same now, where it's like, I'm sure there's people that just let it go and they don't use it, but it's like, especially with me, if I'm not using it and I don't intend to use it for a while, I'm just going to cancel it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, let's see, their overall gaming revenue, though, declined 7%, and Xbox hardware revenue declined 29%. So it's like, okay.
I mean, they've talked for a while about how they kind of want to bring Xbox to every single console. And
yeah, they have
Game Pass is leading. Yeah, like Game Pass is leading towards that. So it does seem like the logical next step for them.
Well, not even just that, but like also in the news is that Forza Horizon 5 is coming to PS5. Yeah. So it's like that's the next game that they're porting over to PlayStation. It's being developed by Panic Button in partnership with Turn 10, who and Playground Games, who of course did Forza. But yeah, it's gonna be coming. Let's see. I'm trying to see here if they have a release date here, or if it's just announced in general. I don't see a release date for when that's going to show up, but it's like, yeah, and obviously they want to put some games on Switch. And it just seems like, okay, well, your sales are going to be down because you're not selling to people that are playing your games on Game Pass, so no shit. But it's like, and anytime I hear like, oh, they got, hey, this new indie game came out, or this, smaller title came out, like Xbox got it on Game Pass. I'm like, okay, but did the devs get enough? I'd assume they did because they wouldn't have signed up. Usually, the idea is that they pitch you with a dollar amount and you're like, okay, we think that would be equal to X number of downloads on a platform. And so we signed that deal. And typically it's really good. If you're Rocket League, then it didn't work out for you. But the reason that game kind of took off was because it was on PlayStation Plus. But yeah, it's like, okay, but then Xbox isn't necessarily are they pulling in new people for those indies? No, it's like you're pulling in people on Game Pass for the Indiana Jones games and whatnot. And it's like maybe people stay around for a little bit longer because of those indie titles. But it's like your hardcore probably won't, but, we'll see. It's interesting stuff. Yeah, I'm curious how many more, how much are they going to port to like Switch 2 once that, the specs for that come out? Like I'm sure they already know the specs if they're thinking about porting any of their games, since they have so many games already that are on there from studios they now own. But
I think what always surprises me with Game Pass and Xbox is PlayStation's monthly service is not like far behind in terms of what it offers, in my opinion. Like regularly I'll see a game on Game Pass and then I'll check on PlayStation like a month later and be like, oh, it was here too and I never heard about it. But like Game Pass gets so much more attention and I think success, and I don't really understand why.
I feel like because it was the first. Yeah. So it's like that's the thing that's in people's minds. Like, oh, if I want like a subscription or streaming service, oh, I'll just use Game Pass.
Yeah, it's it's cheaper. It's so much cheaper than getting like PlayStation Essentials.
It is cheaper, yeah.
And so it's like, okay, you got, 15, 16 bucks, 17 bucks, whatever it is a month. It's like, okay, it's your Netflix subscription for games. It's a great deal for gamers, but it's like you need to be that kind of gamer that isn't playing just the one game. You also got to play like a couple other things that, come out, or like maybe you wait for it to, once South of Midnight hits or something, or once this other game hits, once Avowed comes out, you're like, okay, now I'll play like all the games I didn't play. I'll just do like a couple months run of Starfield, Indiana Jones, Avowed, South of Midnight, and then play some other indies that are on there as well. It's a great deal, but I'm like, it's not. I can't imagine it being like profitable for Microsoft. I mean, I don't know, man. It just seems like it's great that it's there for gamers, but I just don't know the long term.
Yeah, it's an odd model long term. I think it kind of depends on companies being willing to take a hit in how much they make in order for Microsoft to make more, but then they get money based on the subscription model, and hopefully that balances out.
Yeah,
or it won't balance out probably, but hopefully it's like you make enough, and this is going to be the new norm going forward, is that the publisher, I guess actually the publisher always probably took more money, but the developer makes enough from Game Pass that they can continue doing their jobs, and Microsoft siphons off more of that money that originally would be going to someone else.
Yeah, I think we punched it before. It was like trying to figure out like, okay, if it's like, $16.99 per subscription, and if you've got like, 2 million subs, that's $34 million a month, which is, $408 million a year. But I'm like, okay, look at the dev time it takes and the cost of your COD, your, this game, all the Activision games now that you have, like all these, and it's like, okay, if they're all in Game Pass, it's like, okay, now you're spreading out that 408 million a year across each of those based on playtime as well. It's not like evenly distributed. It's like, okay, when they come out, what position were you? It's like a percent, of it. So it's like, okay, you were 10% of our player base played you, you get 10% of the profits of Game Pass. It's like, okay, but it's like that can't be when you have so many big studios. I'm like, there's no way. Especially you got Perfect Dark and everything. It's like that's gonna take 20 years.
It definitely, when it first came out, it was definitely like for not big games. Like there were some big games on it. They weren't day one releases, obviously. But it was mostly for like smaller games, and it was kind of part of, you could pay a little bit more, and it was just basically like Xbox Live. So if you wanted to play multiplayer, you paid for Xbox Live and you got Game Pass with it or whatever. But it was definitely like, at least when I use it, I would only play like one game a month on it. So it's like if I wanted to play a game that was $40, I could just pay, of course at that time it was like $9. I paid $9 and get to play it for a couple weeks, and then like that's it. And maybe I would keep my subscription and see if there was something else that I wanted to play like the next month. But I feel like in order to get more people to subscribe to it and to stay subscribed to it, they started adding obviously the bigger titles, and they started adding like day of launches. So it's like, yeah, if you wanted to play Call of Duty, you don't have to go out and buy Call of Duty. If you have Game Pass, you can just download it and start playing like separately kind of thing. So, but for me, it was more about like the smaller games or games that I wasn't fully sure about, and I kind of just wanted to like try them and play them, or if I wasn't sure if it was going to be worth like the cost of just buying it separately. But it also, I mean, I don't know if I'm necessarily like a fringe case or something like that, but I played Tunic on Game Pass and I really adore that game. And then I bought it on Steam, and I want to buy the physical edition and all the little stuff that goes with it because I want to support the developer. But I don't think a lot of people think like that necessarily.
Weirdly enough, I played Tunic at the start for free first and then bought it afterwards for basically exactly the same reason. I thought like, oh, I need to own this. And like typically what I've used the PlayStation, I can't even remember what it's called. Essentials? What the hell's the streaming one? Yeah. When I've used Essentials, it's been games that are like indie games that are getting a lot of attention that I would love to try out, but that they have like no reviews or something. So like, using an example that weirdly has very few reviews right now, like I played through Ender Magnolia, which strangely doesn't have as much attention on like Twitch or other areas where I would have thought that it would be. That would be the perfect game for me, where I would be like, okay, if I've never played the first one, I would play this on Essentials or Game Pass, see how it is. And that's probably also a game where their inclusion in Game Pass, Microsoft probably could pay them enough that it is like somewhat close obviously, if you have one of the huge breakout games, you're essentially taking a gamble that your game is good but not breakout worthy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I never really considered it for like the big AAA releases. That always kind of didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I could see like as since I'm not in the ecosystem, like I could totally see like, hey, do I want to try? Like we had talked about and never executed the idea of playing Grounded on Game Pass, and I'd be like, okay, that'd be fun to like play for like a month and then just
Mm-hmm.
not go back to, or like wait until like maybe there's some big if we had fun. Months like a year later they have new content or something. Like go back, play it for a month, or I could see like trying out like I had thought about using my free trial, my 3 month free trial, try Starfield on PC. The problem was that the Game Pass version, like you couldn't do mods for the mod support at the time, and I was like, oh, come on, like they do that a lot. Where like if you do it through Game Pass, you can't get mods. You have to get like the game, the actual game. And so I was like, okay, I won't do that. But I could see doing that for some games where it's like, all right, South Midnight probably will come to PlayStation at some point. But I could see if I was having a lull or want something to play, like getting Game Pass. Just to have access to some of those games so I could try single player games, try beat, and not worry about going back to because I'm not an achievement hunter. So I'd be fine that I'm not, playing it on PlayStation and adding to my trophy level or whatever. It's like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But it just, I haven't necessarily gotten there yet with a game. Like I have tried, I did play some games. Like it was fun to go back and play Fallout 76 or try Fallout 76 on PC after the Fallout show because that was on Game Pass. So I was hop back in there a bit, played it. But yeah.
That's actually another good example of games that would be worthwhile for like Game Pass or things, is things that didn't review well at the start that have been patched up since then, and like people are hesitant to go back and buy them for some reason. Those ones would make a good fit for Game Pass. So in that essence, like Fallout 76, No Man's Sky, games where they've really spent time changing them and improving them, but they have bad marketing attached to it for some reason.
Yeah.
Or
yeah,
like,
we'll see. I mean,
I think the original marketing for it was like, hey, do you play a lot of games? Do you want to play more games, but you just don't have the money for it? Game Pass is a good deal because you can play as many games as you want for this low price. And they did have a lot of like play and put down games, a lot of indie games, but they also had like not like live service games, but kind of like more long-term games that you could play too. But it was also like, hey, if you want to play a really long game, but you also want to do something in between, it's available like on Game Pass. You don't have to switch like ecosystem. You don't have to, it's all in one place basically. And all your stuff is saved and it's all in one convenient little package. But I've noticed like as time goes on, they try to obviously to gain more subscriptions. They market it to more and more people being like, oh, this is a solution for everybody. But if you're the type of person who's only playing one game a month, or if you only have time for one game a month, or there's only one thing that you're interested in for 3 to 4 weeks, then it's not any different than you just like going and buying the game and playing it like at your own pace, basically, or getting like your absolute money's worth out of it. So it's good for people that like maybe don't finish games or want to try a lot of games without the intention of finishing them. They kind of jump around and stuff like that. Or if you are a person who just plays a lot of stuff and it evens out rather than buying 4 games for, $30 to $60, you just pay, what is it now, like $17 a month, and you can play those as much as you want. But I mean, I could see how it would be good for like kids and younger people and stuff like that, but it's not like the end all be all solution that they keep marketing it as. And then people will get it, realize they only play 1 game a month, or they didn't play anything on it that month, and then they cancel their subscription. So I think that's where a lot of their like panic, I guess, comes from, for lack of a better word, where they're like, oh no, our subscriptions are doing as well, we're seeing a really big drop off, and then it spikes. It's like, oh, it's doing really, really good. But then it drops off again. They're like, oh no, what do we do to keep those subscriptions around? It's like, that's the nature of a subscription service. I feel like, especially in, 2025, where people are being more mindful of the fact that everything is subscription based now.
Yeah. Yeah, like way back, like PSN used to be like the place for indies. Like they had a big indie push, from Shuhei Yoshida. And so like a lot of indies would always show up on, I mean, again, going back to Rocket League, like would be on there. Like I remember that one E3 where it was like the stage, they had like 6 indie games or whatever up there on stage. I think it was the year that Entwined came out at the same time. It was like day and date release. But it was like they had all the indie devs up playing their games. Like all these are coming to, the PlayStation Plus, being, when they come out. It's like, yeah, it always seemed like Game Pass could be that, because eventually Sony kind of moved away from that a bit. Like I said, where it's you play your main stuff you buy, and then you have this nice subscription that has it's like a supplemental thing with a bunch of indie titles you can check out. But yeah, it's just like, I don't know. I mean, like we said, their game revenue was down 7%. So it's like, okay, but what? I'd have to go back and look at each quarter report and see what their total yearly results were, because they only talked about the quarter. They didn't talk about their entire 2024. So it's like, okay, what is that? Continuing a downward trend? Like, what's the macro view of your game revenue? Because if the game revenue is down, but your player base is up on Game Pass, then you clearly still have a disconnect. So
yeah, and also a 7% decline, I feel, is more or less acceptable, considering, gesturing wildly at the state of the world.
Yeah,
People have less money for disposable or like luxury things like that. So yeah, maybe your Game Pass is going to go up, but your sales are going to go down because people are being more mindful of like what they're actually buying and what studios they're buying from, rather than like, oh, I'll pay a month for Game Pass and just play like this thing that I'm mildly interested in.
And like 7%, like, because we do a lot of KPI metrics and whatnot for the year, and like forecast accuracy and what have you, and like 15% is like the threshold up or down. But it's like, so it's like 7% is an acceptable percentage down. But again, I'm really curious about that macro view. Like, how did they go into 2024? What was their game revenue like from there? And then how did it go over the course of the years? Like that's why what's the entire review? Because like, yeah. And obviously they can look at, bigger global factors into that and have as their reasons. But it's curious. Anyway,
it's like an end of quarter summary, but it's like, okay, well, how did you fluctuate throughout the year anyway?
Right.
Because you were down 10% at one point, but you went up to 15%. You're not going to be like, oh, we lost 10% revenue. And you're not going to mention the fact that it went up to 15 and now you've lost 7. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Especially if it's just a QBR and it's like, okay, a quarterly business review. It's like, okay, it's just how we did in the quarter, irrespective of our performance previously. It'll be in the slide, no doubt, but that's typically you only talk about the quarter. Yeah. But yeah, speaking of like multi-platform stuff, Sony announced that they won't require the PSN account to play some of its PC games anymore, primarily a lot of the single-player stuff. I know they got a lot of backlash when they added it to like Horizon. Like obviously they put it on Helldivers 2 because it's multiplayer, but they put it out like after the game release. There's huge backlash there. But then like, oh, Horizon's coming. It's like, oh, that's going to require it. And like, so with like Last of Us, remastered and whatnot, and Horizon Zero Dawn remaster. But they announced recently in the PlayStation blog explaining that they're dropping the PSN account connection requirement, starting with the release of Spider-Man 2, which came out on PC this week. So that's good there. But yeah, I'm curious. It looks like they also dropped it, like I said, for Last of Us Part 2, God of War Ragnarok, and like I said, Horizon Zero Dawn remastered. So we're assuming that the Until Dawn and Days Gone, will they change? But I'm sure they'll come back and see something there. But it seems like hopefully in the future now, any single player PC port will not require PlayStation Network, which was a really dumb requirement for a single player title.
Yeah,
but
they
did announce though there are incentives though to link your account.
I don't care.
The fuck does that mean? Like, what incentive are they going to provide?
It's in-game content incentives. So like, which I think is a much better deal. Like, it's like, hey, you don't require it, but if you want to do it, you can. So like in Spider-Man 2, you can get like early. You can unlock some early suits, like this one's like 2 specific suits. Like you can get them early without doing like requirements. In God of War, you can gain access to the armor of the Black Bear set for Kratos at the first lost item chest. And so it's like basically like, hey, here's some previously only accessible in New Game Plus run. Oh, interesting. And you get like a resource bundle. It's like, here's some hack silver and some extra XP. And then Last of Us Remastered, you get 50 points to activate bonus features and unlock extras. Like, they have that point system in a lot of Naughty Dog games. And then you also get Jordan's jacket from Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet, as a skin for Ellie. That's pretty cool. But yeah, it's like, and then, so it's like just cosmetic stuff. It's like, hey, typically would you see like a pre-order bonus for like skins and stuff? It's like that. It's like nothing that will impact gameplay, well, except for the points or the hack silver and whatnot for God of War. But like, just
getting a New Game Plus armor set.
Yeah, just getting like Yeah, right. I'm curious what the stats are on this set, but like I think that's a much better like incentive. Like give them a reason, and it's like because there are people that would do that. Like, oh, I get access to this. Like I dislike bonuses that give me an advantage at the start. I never use them because I'm always like I'd rather just go in vanilla. Like if it's cosmetics, whatever. But I don't like oh, Dead Space, you get access to the gravity gun in Dead Space 2 right away if you have this edition or whatever. And it's like nope, that's gonna give me too much of a advantage early on in the game. But yeah,
I don't know. I always hate advantages like that because I think they sometimes encourage balancing in games that's not quite correct.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm always hesitant whenever they're like, oh, get this early bonus that does X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
Or somebody that's like, oh, I played that God of War game and I played it on the hardest difficulty and it was super easy. Why are games so easy now? But they don't tell you that they got all of this like bonus stuff at the beginning of the game. And it's
when I watch people stream Liza P and they use the Spectre and I hear them say shit like, this game's kind of easy. I'm like, motherfucker, you're using the fucking Spectre, which is like way more OP in Liza P than any of the summons in like Elden Ring almost. It's like,
right.
What the hell? You can't say it's easy when you're streaming the easy route. like I don't care if you use a Spectre. I will silently judge you, but don't say the game's easy while you're using the Spectre.
I didn't mind Spectres and things like that or summons because they're like very clearly part of the game.
Sure.
And in Lies of P, I'm trying to think. I don't think there were any. No, there were not pre-order bonuses. There was the weird like axe weapon that I tried out that one time.
The Wukong weapon came out because that like came later, so everybody got it, and there was like holiday skins and stuff. So yeah, that which is like an OP Dex weapon if you use it at the starting game, which is why I didn't use it.
But like the summons are at least part of the natural progression of that game. So there's a part of me that's like, well, it's natural progression at least.
Yeah, I know they're not the same. I'm just Zayas mentioning, how saying like, oh, the game was kind of easy because you're using end game gear. It's like it just reminded me of the people playing Lies of P that they're not related, just that they would say that it's easy.
It's the same thing of like I played Elden Ring and I used every like summon and ash and overpowered bullshit that I could use because I'm not good at those games and I need them to get through the game. But
which is fine.
That's also like it's there for people like me who want to play the game and are not like perfect at it, but at least I could still play it and get through it. If you don't need those things or you don't want those things, you don't have to have them. But I wasn't going around being like, oh, it's the easiest FromSoft game on the planet because I was able to play it. I don't know why anybody else is having trouble with this. Look, I never beat Millennia, okay? And I acknowledge that.
Yeah, all the people who let me solo her come in there, it's like, okay, no, they never... You're not sitting there going, yo, I beat Millennia. It's like, no, you let someone else do it.
Yeah.
Just quit your
boasting. You summon somebody with the let me solo her build just because it wasn't the same guy, but it was the same build who came in and soloed her for you. It's not easy.
Just a Liza P rant because I've seen that quite a bit because I always browse the people streaming Liza P to see what they how they're doing. But anyway, that's another thing. Okay. Moving on, the Devil May Cry anime got a release date. It's coming out April 3rd, so we look forward to that. I know Castlevania Nocturne Season 2 is currently out. I've only watched the first episode. I need to catch up and watch the rest of it because I didn't have time. And typically the time I would watch is when I'm gaming now, so I gotta watch that. But I'll be curious to see how that comes out. I know the Tomb Raider anime, I think it reviewed okay, but I've seen people like say they enjoy it, so I haven't had a chance to watch the Tomb Raider one yet. It's on my watch list. And then looks like Lance McDonald did, he did the 60 FPS patch for Bloodborne on PlayStation. You had to like crack it to do that. He got hit with a DMCA from Takedown from Sony, so he took it down, the mod from, I guess, the instructions to do it.
Yeah, he didn't distribute it. He just told people how to do it.
But what was interesting about it was like, okay, whatever. But it can't, like, he did that in 2021. Just like, why now? Which again just sparks, which is annoying because it just sparks speculation. Like, oh, why would Sony do it now? Are they working on a remaster? Yada yada yada. It's like, okay, stop it. But it was so funny because like it's a, they asked him to take it down, okay, but then sometimes I'd see headlines that say they'd be like, the way they describe Sony sending the DMCA takedown, they describe it like super aggressively. And I'm like, why? It's not like you can send the DMCA takedown in different tones. It's like, take it down. But they're like, the way they report, like IGN specifically on their video version of this, like, aggressively takes down, 60 FPS patch and blah, blah, blah. It's like, why are you making it so aggressive? What is going on? I guess I want the clicks.
Sensationalizing for no reason. Even though Lance was just like, hey, they sent me a takedown notice. I took it down.
Yeah.
There was nothing like weird about it. They just sent me an official notice. It's all in legalese. Maybe that's why it sounds bad, but it's just, I mean, it is kind of a bummer because he did a lot of work on it and he like basically gave it to the community for free and was like, hey, if you want to do this, here's how you do it. But yeah, all it does is spark uproar and rumors and shit. And you can tell that he's just like, I don't want to be involved in this. I'm just letting you know, turning off my replies now.
The last I saw that there's apparently a video game movie coming out called OBEX. It was shown at Sundance. I never heard of it. But IGN had a review of it and they gave it an 8. It's like a get sucked inside the video game kind of movie. But it takes place in like 1987, so like it's an old school game, but it sounds like it's only like 90 minutes long or whatever. But from what I was reading, like it sounds like it could be like a pretty good, because also like a kind of a horror as well. So kind of like what's that? Stay Alive. If you die in the game, you die in real life. So it's kind of like that. But I saw it and I was like, oh, this seems interesting. So I'll have to keep my eyes out when that comes out and check it, because OBEX is a lo-fi stunner of a video game movie, merging a deeper understanding of the way games work and playful and creative sequences that also pack a deeply emotional punch. Black and white cinematography. Okay. Interesting. So yeah, came out of nowhere. I feel like it's just one person wrote, directed, and starred in it. And I'm like, okay, little indie video game horror. Could be fun.
It's like Tron vibes, but if you were dumped into Resident Evil, I guess.
Yeah. Which is what Stay Alive was.
God, I mean, that is a fun premise, though.
Yeah, I mean, as goofy as Stay Alive is, I remember watching it in theaters, man. Like that was it was a fun time. But I'll have to. Hopefully, that gets it'll probably come out in Shudder, and I'll be like, am I gonna have to actually get like a Shudder subscription to watch these movies I keep hearing about that seem like they could be pretty good?
Yes.
But, yeah. All right. Well, that'll do it for the news. I don't have anything else tagged, so we can go ahead, because we've been gone for a bit. We can go ahead and jump into what we've been playing. Go ahead and start with you. I know last we spoke, you had finished Lorelei and Laser Eyes. I hadn't finished at the time. I have since, but have you played anything else between last?
God, was that really last time we spoke?
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah. So I went back to Nine Souls and also Ender Magnolia. So I played through and beat Ender Magnolia since we last spoke, and also have been playing through Nine Souls pretty much right now. So Ender Magnolia, I really enjoyed it. I played the first one, Ender Lilies, and I thought it was like a decent game, but had some like pretty obvious flaws. And Ender Magnolia kind of polishes up a lot of those flaws. It's, I guess, the best way. So I'm going to compare it to Nine Souls back and forth since I am playing both of them. But Ender Magnolia is a really, really polished Metroidvania that doesn't do anything super new, but it does everything kind of like at an 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 level. And Nine Souls is a Metroidvania that's a lot closer to Sekiro, that does certain things as like 10 out of 10 and other things as like 5 out of 10. So they're both, kind of averaged, are probably getting very similar scores. But yeah, Ender Magnolia was really fun Metroidvania. I like the combat in it a lot. You kind of explore and find summons and creatures that you use for your abilities instead of upgrading yourself. It has a lot of really nice quality of life things in a Metroidvania. So it has like you unlock double jump like really early on in the game. You unlock air dash really early on. I think like right after the first boss, you unlock both of those. So they open up exploration super quickly. It tracks all of the items you get so that you can tell when looking at a map if you've finished clearing out a zone or if you need to go back there for more weapons items, whatever, some secret in there. So it just has a lot of like really nice quality of life things that make playing the game very comfortable. There's no difficulty challenges. You can control the difficulty of the game with both sliders and like normal and hard mode. So kind of across the board, just like a 9 out of 10 Metroidvania. really fun. The vibe of the game, it's kind of like a dark, dreary world. It's got like an okay story. The story's fine. But yeah, I mean, I started playing it and I beat it. I enjoyed it enough. There were 2 bosses that kind of frustrated me. One of them is actually a really early game boss, and I played on hard. And it's pretty clear to me that the game was designed on normal mode. And then for hard, they just increased the frequency of attacks and speed of bosses, which doesn't work well for one of the bosses in the game, because he ends up just doing a continuous ability that you like can't get an opening to attack. And it's a boss where it's really easy to dodge his attacks so you can stay alive for a really long time. But holy shit, the boss took me like 30 minutes because there were never any openings. But pretty much aside from that, it was a fun game. I liked it a lot. Definitely recommend it.
Yeah, check that out.
And then Nine Souls is just 2D Sekiro. I mean, the combat in that game is great, but holy shit, it's hard. I think it's probably harder than any of the Souls games.
Interesting. Yeah, I watched someone stream part of it, so I've seen like a lot of fights. I didn't watch all the things that they did, but like I watched them do like the final fight, and they got like never mind, I won't say.
Of Nine Souls or of Ender Magnolia?
Nine Souls.
Oh yeah, the final fight is absurd.
And then like doing the well, again, I won't say that because it's a spoiler, but doing more, let's say, and like yeah, it definitely seemed like the parry mechanic, I guess, or in that game was like I guess a little different. They were having some trouble like getting that timing down initially.
The parry mechanic has it does feel different. It doesn't feel bad, like it doesn't feel laggy, but the parry timing is definitely, I think it leans towards you have to do it a little bit earlier than you would expect
Kinda
for a
like
lot of attacks.
The dragon sword or whatever in Lies of P.
I didn't actually use that one, so
okay.
But it's not like you parry right as you see the enemy attack hit you. You have to do it a tiny bit before. And if you do it a tiny bit before, it's almost like it's kind of like a block where you prep blocking really shortly beforehand and then the attack hits, which once you realize that and get used to it, it's fine. But until you realize that, it definitely feels weird.
Yeah.
And the first boss, and I'm just going to spoil the first boss of like, Nine Souls really like drops you in with difficulty right away. The very first boss in the game, they have it be like a multi-phase boss that you can only beat by parrying. So it's like they don't ease you in at all. They just really quickly make you go like, yeah, this is a hard game. Get used to it.
Funny. Jump in, but it's the sea turtles being born. Gotta get to the water.
It just kind of cracked me up because it's like, usually the tutorial boss in the Souls game is like, yeah, you have to learn to dodge, and that's the only thing you have to worry about in this fight is just dodging, and then like you'll get a hold of it. Don't worry, guys. And like usually the Souls bosses are meant to be hard, and then as you play more, you realize how freaking easy they actually are. I honestly think the first boss in Nine Souls gave me more trouble and is harder than like anything else I've found thus far in the game.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll check it out, just 'cause I've seen so much of it, and like I'm like, okay, I'm not sure if I'm in the mood to play that kind of game right now. It's just because it's a pretty decently length game too, isn't it?
I'm not super sure how long it is. I kind of have gone in without spoilers for like length of game. I saw the final boss only because I heard talk about it, and I was curious if that would dissuade me from playing it, so I wanted to look it up. Spoilers, the final boss is hard. In a hard game, the final boss is hard. But I think my biggest complaint with the game is that the progression for Metroidvania is not very polished, and it doesn't seem, not the progression, the like actual world exploration. It feels much more linear and like a 2D platformer in terms of exploration than it does in Metroidvania. But that also makes it really hard to tell the actual length of a game. Like you can kind of get an idea of how many bosses you're supposed to beat, but you don't have like an overall map view where you can kind of be like, oh, I've explored a ton of the world. I must be getting near the end or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. When I saw the map, when they had opened it up, it seemed like it has like a 2 tiers where it's like you zoom out, it's like, oh, here's like this region. And then when you zoom in, it's like, okay, here's all the subsections in that region. Okay, yeah, that was interesting when I saw that. Because like, oh, when they first opened up the map, I was like, oh, this it doesn't look that big. And they zoomed out, okay, never mind. It's like a macro, big old macro view.
Yeah, you the map has multiple levels, and this is one of those things, like, this is an area where it's not polished well. The map is not great. It is multiple tiers. It seems really big, and then you have to zoom in order to get like the lower detail level, which is the level where you can actually see things. But it's still a fun game. It's just, I don't know if I would ever recommend Nine Souls to someone who is looking for a Metroidvania, who wanted to focus on like exploration and getting power ups and abilities to get stronger in order to beat the game. It is so heavily to me not just, but like so heavily to me more like Sekiro that I think it shouldn't be called a Metroidvania.
Yeah, I get that. Makes sense.
Also, it's hard. I mean, I like hard games, and there are fights in this game that I thought were like pushing it.
Push it real good. Yeah, I mean, gotta give him a challenge. But
Dude,
yeah,
the first tiny rant about the first boss again. Not only is it a 2-phase boss where you have to learn parrying and dodging, but they also have time dodging in it, in the sense that like the enemy's attack patterns for the first boss are such that they have a multi-hit combo, and if you dodge the first hit of the combo and then you don't wait like half a second, you will get hit by the second hit of the combo. So the attacks are even timed perfectly, such that like you can't just dodge, see an attack, dodge, see an attack. You have to like pause. So they just do all these dirty tricks in order to actually make you learn the game. And I don't mind it because I got past it, but I also don't think it's like a great way to introduce people to a game, especially one that requires a steep learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
Boo, let me be lazy, boo.
Yeah, you can't be lazy.
What about you, Zai? What have you been playing?
Since we last talked.
Lorelei and the Laser Eyes.
Okay, so I mentioned that I beat Astrobot. After I beat Astrobot, I played Echoes of Wisdom. I played and beat that about like a week, I guess. I played it pretty constantly and played that. That was super, super fun. I really, really love top-down, like isometric Zelda games. So that was very fun. I do think it was a little bit weird that they were like, hey, we have to give some kind of combat, so we'll just make her fight like Link and kind of like transform into Link. So that was a little bit weird. I don't know, spoilers, I guess. It's been out for a while. But other than that, it was very, very fun. More like a puzzle game than any other Zelda game, obviously. And I like that the basic premise of the game is there's no puzzle that can't be solved with 5 strategically placed beds. So it was like, if you come into a room that has a very obvious puzzle and you're just like, I guess I can see how they want me to do this, but also I can just make a staircase out of beds and go over here and do it this way. So that was kind of fun to like, obviously they thought that people could do it the easy way, but there was like a fun way or a creative way to do it too. But they also give you an ability to like pick up enemies and like just pick up like most things in the environment. You can pick it up without necessarily creating it. So a lot of times you would get into like a fight and there may be like a pit in the corner or something like that you can fall in, but also you could just pick up the enemy and drop them in a pit. There you go, battle done. It was pretty fun. But yeah, it was super cute. It's super fun. I did most of it. I think the only thing I was missing is like a couple collectibles, 2 heart containers. So I think I was missing a total of like maybe like 5 heart pieces, and like 1 upgrade or something like that. So the overworld exploration is really fun. It's very cute, very fun. But other than that, once I beat that, I basically just been playing Honkai Star Rail. They came out with the 3.0 update recently, but I'm working on clearing out a bunch of side quest stuff that I never did. I was catching up on the rest of the story stuff. So I'm doing a bunch of side quest stuff, and then once that's done, I'm going to get into the 3.0 story, go to the new area, and get new characters. So very fun, very exciting. Continue to give them money every month because I play this game obsessively. But that's basically all I've really been playing. It's just Honkai at this point.
Can't go wrong. It's funny, every time you talk about Honkai Star Rail, I always think of, for some reason, I think Genshin Impact first. I don't know why, but I think it's because not far off. But I always think about that game at first when you say Honkai Star Rail. I'm like, oh, Genshin Impact. I'm like, no, not Genshin Impact.
The other one, the space one.
Like I said, since last recording, I finished Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. I'm trying to see if I have any notes written down because I think I.
Yeah, we didn't get to talk about the final puzzle on that, which I was curious about.
Yeah, I got to see if I took notes because I think I. The hell was that? I might have written down notes. Sometimes I write my notes down on my PC instead of my phone. I try to do them on my phone just to make sure, hey, they're at least all in one place and I got them in the same spot. I'm just trying to double check my notepad here. Okay. Do I have any notes? No. Okay. But yeah, I finished Lorelei and Laser Eyes. Overall, I still think, like we talked about and we said before, a lot of the game is a little too easy. But I think I started watching other people play it. Other streamers, like small streamers, I didn't really see any big streamers playing it. And I came to the conclusion that either everyone is bad or I'm on the spectrum, which could be the case. And because I'm like, oh my God, like and because I watched one guy, he even said like, oh, he's a big puzzle person. He likes puzzle games and this and that. And I'm like, because I thought like, oh, maybe he's just dipping his toe in. I'm like, but he says he loves puzzles. But I mean, you could be bad at puzzles and still love puzzles if you solve them eventually, I suppose. But it's just like, I realized that, oh, maybe we're an outlier. Not to like toot our own horn, but just like empirically looking at the evidence of watching other people play it. Because I watched these two guys that were playing it, these VTubers, and they weren't using they were just like normal human avatars, but they were VTubing it. And they were playing, and some puzzles they'd solve like pretty quick. But other ones, I gave them the benefit of the doubt because they hadn't played it in like a week from when I had tuned in and started watching. I'm like, okay, that could be kind of tough if you haven't played the game in a while, especially a puzzle game. I'm like, okay, what's the underlying mechanic that's kind of similar throughout a lot of these solutions, yada yada. And they seem to be doing okay, but they still would flub a lot. But I'm like, okay, maybe they didn't do it. But like everybody else I'd watch, I don't know.
I genuinely think that that game has weird puzzle balance in the sense that 95% of the puzzles are quite easy and logical and too easy and logical. And then there's 5% that, there's one or two that just don't make sense to me. And I understand how they were solved and I just think they're poorly designed. And then there's a few puzzles near the end where I kind of went, oh, wow, this is actually a good puzzle.
But I go ahead.
Genuinely don't think that most of the puzzles in that game are actually puzzles so much as they are you need to just find the piece of paper that tells you what you're supposed to do here and put in that number.
Well, even the year doors, when you find those, I was able to sight read some of those, none of those really gave me any problems except the one where it's 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 a perspective where, spoilers for this puzzle, you line up the camera crosshair essentially on the number of the year, and then however big that square is for that number, when you zoom in to fill up the cursor, that's the frame you look for, and then that becomes the one goes here. If you have to zoom in to fill the 3, and then you pan the camera looking for the frame that's in this long hallway, that one took me a bit to figure out. But all the others I'm okay, they sight read. But I watched one guy, the one guy I watched, it's the puzzle where it's the year door that has all the statues, and the year in that one's let's say 1963, and so he realized
because everyone is 1963.
Well, it's there's are they all 1963 doors? No, they're 18.
No, I just meant they're all there's 3 numbers in that game that are everything.
Well, but the year doors definitely all have a different. There's because there's 9 doors, so they all have to have 9 years. But anyways, it's okay. He flips the camera. He knows the door is 1963, and he goes in there. But he writes down the number position of every statue that when he cycles the TV, and it shows you the camera, the view of the statue, and this is the number for that statue, which is the position on the input when you find the box. Now, granted, he hadn't unlocked that room yet that has the boxes that correspond to where you have to input these answers. But I was still it's crazy that you wrote down all 10 positions, essentially, when you only need the 4 that's on the door. But I guess it just didn't click that you only need, if the door is 1847, you only have to look for 18, 4, and 7. You know what I mean?
I think I did that on the very first one, maybe, before realizing what numbers I was looking for. But even that one, I think it was I walked into the room, wrote it all down, took a minute to think about it, then went, oh, hey, this isn't correct. Went back out, looked at the door number, and was like, oh, this is what I need to do. Obviously, it's the year on, the door.
Mm-hmm. Well, like the one with the camera, and you turn it around, and like the ones on the bottom, whatever, the 9's on the side, the 3's on one side, and then like the numbers on the other side. It's like, okay, like that one took him a long time to figure out. Again, it was, whatever. It was just, but there was one person I did watch, a VTuber, who was like, he had like, he was doing really well. So I'm like, okay, so here's someone who like, he was pretty late game when I was watching, but he like remembered where stuff was. He knew like, okay, this goes here, yada, yada. He was doing like the maze and answering some stuff, yada, this and that. I'm like, okay, so at least there's someone. But I'm like, a lot of the people I watch, I'm like, man, they're struggling. Like my kid was playing some puzzle games on my wife's phone when we were at breakfast yesterday, and he's like, oh, I did the puzzle here, and my wife's like, oh, good, you got to do puzzles, good for your brain. I'm like, hey, I got some puzzle games for you. You want to play some Witness? You want to play some Portal 2? How about some Lorelei, the laser puzzles? Eyes? yeah. But I just try to get them into those games. But yeah, again, even though it was easy, I still had a lot of fun.
Yes, I enjoyed it a lot. I had a lot of fun. I just don't think it's like, I think it's a really good game. When I started playing it, it got a lot of praise as like the next Witness, the next Talos Principle, the next Portal. I don't think it's there. I still think it's a really good game. I still think it's really fun. I would still recommend it to people as a puzzle game, but I would tie back to Ender Magnolia. It does a lot of things really well, and it's just not the best game ever.
Like I said, yeah, really good time. I guess it's like, to put it in like Souls vernacular, it'd be like, some bosses you just can sight read and beat super easy that other people struggle with, and you struggle with other ones that they beat easy. Like just the puzzle type in this game was just like, I'm just Rain Man, I'm like, what's up? but there are some puzzles that were like, okay, ones that cause me problems are the ones where it's like you don't solve them now. It's like telling you, hey, now here's a puzzle. You're just gonna have to wait until you get the stuff. But like pulling myself away from it to be like, okay, well, I know a lot of this about the puzzle, but I just don't know the key. Like I don't have the key, and get it till way later. So I'm like, I gotta move away. But
I think that like the puzzles that were really easy were the ones that were basically like find X, Y, or Z in the room and then put it in. The puzzles that were hard that I enjoyed more, spoilers for Lorelei, obviously, but like I really liked the final puzzle, which I thought was a good level of challenging, and it definitely stumped me for a bit. And then I had a moment where like things kind of clicked and I realized what I had to do to solve the final puzzle. And I think it's really cool when like I like it in a puzzle game when I'm stumped for a bit, and then like I walk away and then I have a moment where I'm like, oh man, this is exactly how I need to solve it. And then I try it out, or I like start going through my notes and things and realize that my logic kind of holds and I think I'm on the right path. And then I start like working towards it and piecing it together. I really like that in puzzle games because it gives me the satisfaction of feeling like I've actually earned and solved something. Lorelei, the reason I say it's like good but not great is most of the puzzles didn't give me the satisfaction. Most of the puzzles I was kind of like, yeah, I know exactly how I have to solve this. I just need to find the right note somewhere that tells me what the number is that I need, but I clearly understand how I'm supposed to solve this. Using like the posters for an example, like realizing the posters are all mixed around. Before I even went to the posters, I'm like, okay, there's a bunch of posters. Some are upside down, some are right side, some are mirrored. I'm like, obviously, they're the answer to the door. Obviously, it's a 4-digit number, so it's going to be a year that's associated with the poster. And obviously, it's going to be rearranged. Like the number's going to be rearranged based on how the poster is displayed. And it's like you see the one poster that's divided into 4 and like rearranged. I'm like, okay, so obviously, it's going to be the numbers of the year rearranged to fit the poster in that order. Mm-hmm. And then the puzzle itself wasn't actually a puzzle. It was just like, okay, I just need to find where that year is listed. Mm-hmm. And it's more of like a hide and seek thing. So those puzzles, they don't give you the same satisfaction as when you have all the pieces and you're not sure what to do with them.
Yeah, you're like solving it in reverse order. Like a lot of them are like I said, they're Tarantino. It's like, I know, okay, this poster plus this poster up down. I know what it's going to be. Like I'm like, oh, it must be the year, like you said, the year they came out. Like it's so it. Then you just need to find. You're doing it like reverse order. Instead of like finding a booklet that's about the Les Enfants Terribles came out in 1967. Okay, I found the poster. Okay, here you're not looking for the poster. You found the poster. You're looking for the cassette box set that tells you like, hey, here's when all these came out. Yada yada. So, which is fine. Like, I don't mind doing a reverse order and being able to sight read stuff. Doesn't mean the one puzzle that annoyed me was like when you're in the crypt and not realizing I can input and do like I can move an object. I was like, what? I was like,
wait. Before you even go any further, because I don't know if I watched this or not. The one thing that annoyed me in the crypt, and I'm curious if it was the exact same one, is when you realize you have to flip the frickin' thing over to mirror it, but you can only flip it over if you hit up. You can't flip it over if you hit like left, right, or down. So you only can hit up in order to flip it. Is that what it was?
Mine flipped, like I think I just hit X or something. Like I was able to flip it fine. Like I just, because it's one button input. So for me, it worked just fine, but I'm on PC. Maybe it was, I don't know, different. But it just like, when I realized, because I'm like, I could tell, like I knew the solution. I'm like, oh, well, clearly this, like I can't get this to be in the position as the thing because like even said on stream, I was like, it's mirrored. And then I just happened to like accidentally hit a button. I'm like, oh motherfucker, you could goddamn move this piece. I was like, it's like this so rare that you can actually
same reaction
move anything in the puzzles. Like typically you're only inputting, you're not moving stuff, you're just inputting. So it's like, because you do that. I mean, there's
literally the same reaction to that one, because on the PS4 you have to hit up on the D-pad to flip it. And it annoyed me so much that you couldn't also hit down to flip it, or if you rotated it or turned it 90 degrees left or right, that you couldn't hit left or right to flip it. You had to hit up to flip it, and that was the only way to flip it. And I'm like, this is counterintuitive. Why can't it flip down? Why does it have to flip up? Like, it annoyed me so much.
Yeah, luckily I wasn't stuck in it for too long. Like I just happened to hit, because I'm like, I could tell like I'm clearly right. It's just, I can't, like, I know what to do. I just can't get it mirrored. And then like, there was another puzzle, the end one. And I was like, I wasn't stuck in that long, but like, I just happened to like do a thing. And like, oh, okay. And I'm like, here you go. Like, we got another one of these. All right. But yeah, it was fun. The one that tripped me up for a bit was the puzzle that gave you the input, like the essentially like a Tetris piece input for the computer. And like, it's where you're walking and there's like the TV screens. That one took me a minute to figure out.
Yeah, that was a tricky one, but that was also a good one of like, that was one of the ones where you have all of the information, and if you've gone to the supercomputer and stuff, like you're missing a piece of logic in order to solve it. You're not missing the information. You're just missing like the train of thought of like how to solve it. And then when it clicks, that was one of the ones where I was like, wow, this is pretty satisfying. Now I realize what I have to do. This is really cool.
Yeah, and that comes down to like this instance of that puzzle type being the only one, except later on, but like it being like the only one of its type. So like everything else had been so like kind of part of the same rubric, and it's like now you got something that's slightly different, and that's where it's like, okay, I wasn't expecting a late game like this to hit me with something new. Let's figure this out.
Right. But I thought it did it great when it did that. Like, I loved that.
Yeah, I didn't mind it. It was just, it threw me off. That's why it took me a bit to figure out. I was like, wait, what?
I also, really liked in terms of like all of those. I thought that I didn't really care about the year memory sequences, like figuring out the year when you get the images. I thought that was a little silly. But figuring out the username for the supercomputer, I enjoyed that puzzle. And that was one of the ones where you get the information super early and then you end up solving it near the end of the game, and it's like you just don't realize how to put all the info together. So I really liked figuring out the username. I really liked figuring out the Tetris pieces. Obviously this is like a shit ton of spoilers, so oops. But the final puzzle with like inputting the names and things, I thought was kind of silly. Like figuring out the memory sequence of years when you have you have to choose the 3 years between each room door. That one I was kind of like, that one I was less sold on. It's like you look at each image and it wasn't hard to figure out. It was just kind of like, I feel like you were just trying to come up with a third thing that was different from the rest of the game. And this is what you came up with. I thought that was the weakest part of the supercomputer, but the rest of it I really enjoyed.
Mind that it was funny because like someone in chat was like, how'd you know that was this? It's like, well, it's like, clearly allow me to look at it like this. But there was somewhere
you just kind of look at it.
I did kind of like those because it's like, it's kind of a spin, like, it's going to be a year. But now you're trying to figure out like, okay, what is the thing that they're doing to make it, unique in its own little style and there was one where it was like, I'm like, this is clearly 1847, but I can't tell you why I know that. So I'm like, this is 1847. And then it was 1847, but like I knew it, I just couldn't see it. And then it was the one where you spin it on the axis, like, oh, if you just rotate everyone like 90 degrees, like that's how it's the answer. I don't know if it's randomized for people. Like
that's the one where you rotate it around, and it's like, each number rotated around.
Yeah, it's like rotated, and then I think it was the first one where everything was like it's the numbers, but they're in like 4 directions, so they look like little ninja stars, or whatever. Like that one, I know it's got to be this, but I can't tell you how I know that. I just know it looking at it. I'm like, it's this, but I couldn't give you I couldn't show my work. And then later I realized, I'm like, oh, it's just this, and I'm like, okay, that's why. But because they look so weird, I'm like, oh, if I just put a dot and then I cut it into quadrants, I'm like, there you go. But yeah, so like. But again, that comes down to like I played so much of the game that like I know it, I feel it in my bones. I just can't tell you why I know it. It's like I'm like Amy Adams in that one movie, Arrival. I'm just like, oh, I'm starting to see things. I spent so long in the language, I could see it. I just it's rewriting my brain now. I can't tell you how I know it. I just know this is the answer. But yeah, there was a lot of fun ones in there. It was a good time. I definitely say play it. It's a fun game.
Really good. I mean, it is. I say it's not really good, but like it is a good game. It is fun. I just thought that it was like for a puzzle game, it didn't quite fill the kind of like satisfaction that I usually seek out of a puzzle game, like the satisfaction of solving things and being challenged on it. And that sounds kind of cocky, but I do generally think it's like part puzzle game, but maybe better described, like you said originally, as like an escape room game.
Yeah, it's a good time. Like I say, definitely check it out if you want some fun little puzzles. And like I said, just we are definitely probably the outliers. The one streamer I watched, he could have been an outlier. Like it could make you think. Like it is a fun game. I really like that split game you can play on the Game Boy. I like that game. The music in it is really good. I'm like, this is some good. I would play this on my phone, like if it was on my phone.
I think those are the only achievements I have to go back and get, and I'm like debating whether or not I care enough about it to actually go back and play those games.
Yeah, those are fun. And then after I beat that, I kind of want, because I was going to go on vacation. I was like, well, I don't want to start anything new that was going to take up some of my time. So like I gotta play something else. And a buddy of mine, another streamer who I follow, he started playing a game called Incursion Red River. Which is like a solo or co-op PvE extraction shooter made by like two devs. It's like an indie game. It's on PC. It's been out for a bit. I think it's technically in early access, or maybe like 1.0 came out a while ago, but it's like in Unreal 5. You can tell it's definitely like a small team that's been working on it. Like there's some things that are missing that are in other games that aren't there. Like there's no prone, there's no melee weapon, there's no melee. But it was only like $17. So I picked it up. I've been playing some of that with him, and that's a lot of fun because I've been wanting to play an extraction shooter for a while, but I didn't want to play Tarkov because, it's Tarkov. But I was like, and that's what I love about Icarus is the extraction elements in Icarus. That's why I play missions. I don't do open world. But I started playing that, and that's a lot of fun. It's a good-looking game, and I can run it pretty well optimized too for it is. And they just tweeted, I was in their Discord, and they just tweeted their roadmap for it, saying like, hey, here's what's coming in 2025. They're doing like new boss, new like weapon jamming, melee weapons, mission overhauls. Like essentially what you can do is just like with Tarkov and games of its like is you go in and there's like vendors. The idea is like the lore of the world is like the Vietnam War went really different. And now it's like it's still going on in current day in contemporary times. So like you play essentially as a PMC fighting in this war. So you have these different factions you can do tasks or jobs for where it's like, hey, go into the map, get the bomb, and then go plant the bomb at the designated position, or go in, plant some bugs or plant some jammers or collect some intel and deposit here, and then you have to extract out. And it's really fun to like going with like no weapons. Like I did a run where I went just a pistol. Like I was doing a James Bond run, and like I had no gear, and I just had to kill a guy and take their gear, and then do that, and then get some stuff, and then extract out. Essentially just a gear run. And there's like tasks you can do, which are like little challenges, like get 10 headshots, do 3 successful raids, collect these specific equipment pieces, or collect these items and sell them at the vendor, yada yada, this and that. And it's fun to play. Like I said, it's kind of small, so you can get do a lot of it pretty quick and see all its content. There's a second map called the Bunker, which I've only done a couple runs in. That's kind of like a dark map, so you need like a night vision in order to really run it well. But I put like 22 hours in the game, and I stream it a lot. It's pretty fun. Like I like just going in there. It was funny. Like when I first was playing it, I was like, this game seems easy, and I was like, because I had the AI on medium, I kept it on medium. Cause I'm like, okay, first time I played it, let's keep it on medium. And I beat the first couple of missions or raids I did like pretty quick, but I did like stealth, kind of sneak around and kill everybody. I'm like, okay, I did a couple, and I'm like, okay, let's bump it up to hard. And even that seemed pretty simple. So then I was like, okay, well, let's bump it up to like you can customize the AI difficulty. So I went to custom and put everything at max. Like they can see you from super far. Their response time to shoot at you is super short. They don't miss their first couple shots. There's like a buffer, like, oh, their first shots won't always miss. And then if they keep shooting, they won't miss, or they'll have like higher chance to hit you. So I'm like, okay, turn everything like the hardest, and it still wouldn't do anything. And even I had one guy who was like, I walked like right up to his face and like shot him, and I think maybe he was just kind of bugging out in some terrain, perhaps. But I was like, what is going on with this game? So then I cycled through all of the difficulties to kind of reset it, and just went back to hard. And then I went through it and like, okay, now it like fixed the AI. So I think maybe this first couple missions I probably just happened to do really well on. And then when I customized it, it broke the AI. And so then I fixed it by putting it hard. I'm like, okay, now it's much more difficult. This is what I wanted, because I wanted a challenge. I'm like, okay. And having them being able to see me from super far it's kind of crazy, because like, yeah, you'd expect, like, I'm so used to like, Metal Gear or something where it's like they don't see you right away. And then unless
don't see you at all.
Yeah, or unless they're like someone like they're a scout, so they have like binoculars, or they're a sniper to where they're like their cone of vision goes further. But you can tell like they'll see you from like 500 meters, and it's like, okay, like if you can see them, essentially they can see you, unless you're in a bush, then you have like camo cover. But it's like, yeah, if you're like on the road or in the open, you can see them. If they look and you could set like they have like a cone of vision of like pretty high on the higher difficulties essentially. But like you could set it toward they could see you in the corner of their eye, basically. Like if you're in that 180 degree cone, they see you. But it is fun. The only thing is, I wish they need to retool their AI a bit, because the audio, sometimes I'll like shoot someone, but like maybe a guy like pretty close to me like doesn't react to the gunshot. I think like the way maybe it's rendering the gunshot audio going around, like it's excluding it because maybe there's too many physical walls between us, but he should hear it. It's also got a really long like audio range, which is crazy. Like you can hear people from like 200 meters. Like if they're walking, it's like it's really loud. I'm like, okay, that's kind of crazy. You can just hear them like super loud. But so I wish the AI would react a little more to that, or like sometimes I'll shoot a body and like they don't see the body right away. I'm like, bra, body's right there. But it's still fun to play, and I'll hop in there and do a couple rounds. But then that led me into trying out Gray Zone Warfare, which was another game I had been looking at when I was looking at extraction shooters prior to getting Icarus. And that one's more of a extraction MMO that came out about 9 months ago, maybe 10 at this point.
Like The Division, or?
Kind of, to where it's like, it's this giant, you play, I don't know what the lore is in the game, I didn't pay attention, but you're one of 3 PMCs, and it's this giant open world zone, like forest kind of zone, and whatever faction you pick, like you have your own operating base. That's where you spawn. And then you take, you do this just like Tarkov and other extraction shooters, like there's vendors that have missions for you. Be like, hey, I need you to go, like plant some bugs here, or I need you to collect supplies. But this is much more hardcore than like Red River will kind of tell you like where to go. Like the intel's here, the bomb goes here. Like they put it, and you have like a little radar, like handheld you pull out. This is more like, you know how in like Assassin's Creed, they changed it to where instead of putting the objective icon, you could do that exploration where it's like, the objective is over by the River Thames, south of this point of interest, east of this one. So you have to kind of like look on the map, see where it is, and go run there. And then once you get close enough, it pops up the objective marker. This will be like, there's a medic, and she's like, hey, I need some. There's this old, like, whoever, like the WHO is in this game. It's like they had a tent with some supplies. We need you to collect some stuff that they left before they got out of the region. They set up shop near a water tower. Can you go find it? And so I knew where the water tower was because I had played previously. And so I go to the water tower, and there's a couple tents with their, their name on it, their acronym. And I find I check the tents, but it's not, the box isn't like highlighted. It's not on the map. It doesn't glow, nothing. So it's like, I'm looking for it and I go into the office building because that's where they had their stuff set up. And then I just happen to find a box and I go up to it. It's like press F to collect supplies. And I'm like, oh, I got the supplies. So it's like, it doesn't hold your hand. It tells you like where to look. Like one was like, hey, I need you to plant 2 bugs at the sawmill or at the sawmill in one of the places. I'm like, okay. So now I have to kind of like go around and look for it. But because it's an MMO, like it's
I kind of like that. I mean, that was a great feature in Assassin's Creed where you could kind of customize it and tweak it.
Yeah. And which is nice. I wish there was just a little more like, I don't know, like sometimes I asked, like I bumped into one guy, it's like, hey, you know where the thing is for this? And he's like, I'm looking for it too. And but anyways, it because it's an MMO, it is PvPvE. But what's fun is like when you're at your base and you're picking your mission, you have like these landing zones and you pick it, and a helicopter in real time comes to the base. You get in your helicopter and you fly out in real time. You don't like in Incursion Red River, you're at your hideout, you pick your gear, you pick your mission, and then you just go and it loads in with your squad and you load into the map at one of a couple specific spawn points. And like, there you go. Because it's an MMO, it's in world. So it's like, it flies you to the landing zone. Everybody can see the helicopter. You know, you land there. You can see all your friendly faction members on the map, so you know where they are. Because there is friendly fire. So you can see where they are. So you can, if you get close, you can be like, go on open voice comms, be like, hey, friendly, whatever. But then there could be enemy factions nearby. I'm only played in the early spots, so it's not. I haven't run into any of the other factions yet. But yeah, and there's all these major points of interest you can go to that have like big fortresses of enemies you can go. And the AI is like really strong. I have gotten one tapped before where it's like I'm standing also to get headshot. And I'm like, oh, I'm out. But the thing is, because it's an MMO, it's got a day-night cycle that they just added in recently, the night portion of it. And it's on a 3-hour cycle. So 2 hours of day, 1 hour of night. But like every time I was playing it on stream, because that's the only time I'd have to play it, it's like I just happen to always hit that hour of night. And for some reason, like it was night always, like because the game's it's not in 1.0 yet. It's not super well optimized. So streaming it and playing it at some decent settings is really tough, and it would just lag out OBS. So I got to set up a dual PC setup so I can not have that issue. Because I end up, if I run it at like 1080p at low, it's like, okay, that's fine. But then at nighttime, it's really hard to kind of see people at 1080p. Like I was running with this one dude. He was a vet who'd played it at when it first launched, but he just came back, and shout out to that guy. He was like super chill. Even though I like at one point when he was he was the guy who I found at the lumberyard. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to do this mission and grab the supplies. So I'm going to get out. And he's like, he's voice comm saying friendly, so I don't shoot him or whatever. I'm like, okay. And usually you can tell it's friendly because it's like they're decked out in gear, and all the enemy AI are more like, rebel soldiers. They only have a gun and maybe a rig. So I'm like, okay, I'm like, look at this. And we're looking for it. He gets killed. He goes, hey, can you pick me up? I need a trauma kit. I'm like, I don't have a trauma kit on me. And like trying to die. He's like, I'll come back. So I stood by his body. I kind of waiting there. So, make sure no enemies spawn in, because that's the other thing that I got to get used to too. Like in Red River, because it's single player essentially, when you kill them, they're done. But this is an MMO, so it's like if you wipe out the town, eventually the enemies spawn back in. But they don't give off, like, they do their own little barkers, just like in Red River, so you can kind of hear them sometimes. But I had a dude like spawn in on me in the lumberyard because I thought it was empty, and then I didn't realize too late that, oh, there's a guy right there, and he just like one tapped me. I was like, God damn it, so I had to go back to my body. But yeah, I pick this guy, or I wait for this guy. He shows back up, and because he wants to get all his gear, he doesn't bring any guns except like a pistol. And I hear him talking to me, but I thought he was behind me. And then he rounds the corner. Luckily, there was like a stack of lumber in front of me, so I start like panic shooting because he wasn't wearing his gear, which is how I differentiate players from NPCs. So I was like, "Oh, it's an enemy!" I can start shooting. He's like, "It's me, dog. I did hit him. But luckily,
don't shoot.
He was totally chill, and like he kept taking me out. Like, let's go do this. What do you need? Well, we'll do this. And like I ended up like I didn't expect to play as long as I did because he's like, "Oh, you need to do that. Oh, we'll go do this thing." And then like sometimes we'd die and we'd have to go back to our bodies. So we'd go like, no gear or whatever, go back on the helicopter, run to our stuff, pick it back up. And it was a lot of fun. Like I'm enjoying it. I'm glad I dialed it in to actually play at night, because night was giving me the biggest problems. I think the biggest issue is because you have such high potential field of view, because it's so open and you're like in a valley, there's nothing breaking up the terrain like there is in other games. So because it's like rendering all that stuff, that really taxes the GPU and that uses a lot of CPU. So it's like just like I gotta dual box it to try to fix it up. I need to pick up a DVI to HDMI cable today so I can do that. But yeah, that's a fun game. I got to give it some more time. You could have, and it's funny because like you can see like who's the veteran players on the map because they have like high ranks and whatnot. But yeah, I like the idea of just, but it's more involved than like Red River doesn't have like specific healing requirements. Is like you just have a health bar. If you get down, it's like okay, you could just take a bandage. You have a revive for if you got a partner with you. You've got some painkillers. Don't do too much. They like slowly heal over time. But they essentially like they fill the gap for a bit and then of your health. But like you're not doing specific stuff. Whereas this is very much like Tarkov, where it's like you need to eat, you need to drink, you have much less stamina than you do in like Red River, and it's if you get hit, it's like okay, your arm's hit, so it's out of commission or this and that, and this is slower, and you have to do you're low on blood, you need a blood bag, you need this, yada yada. So it's a little more involved, but they're both fun. I think it's like Red River something I can just hop into easily and do like a couple missions, get some gear, level up the vendors and what have you, and then Gray Zone's something I could see like because it's more MMO like just hopping in and having some fun, just hopefully not running into any obnoxious players or something like that. But it's weird, like they have this thing like much. I think it's kind of like whatchamacallit. I think it's like The Division, where I'm trying to remember what it was. There is a game, maybe it was The Division, where if you run it to people outside of like in the dark zone of The Division is where like that's where the PvP happens. But you can run into man, I wish I knew a game. There was a game where it's like if you shoot another player, they don't take any damage. But if they shoot you back, then you initiate PvP.
Fallout.
Oh, it was Fallout 76, you're right.
That was Fallout.
Yeah. Oh, that's kind of
cool. Which was smart. It's like you take like a ticket like 1 HP, but this is like I think when I shot him, he still took some high damage, but eventually I got flagged as a bad like a whatever. I got designated like a bad player or whatever, like a traitor. Much like when you go rogue in The Division, you get marked on the map like you've gone rogue. So like if I was doing it, it's like I got marked, but it also gave me a penalty for 8 minutes saying that if I died, I'm not allowed to pick up the loot that was on my body because I've shot a friendly faction player. I was like, oh, damn it. So if I die, I can't pick up any of my stuff. And I was like, okay, let's just not die for 8 minutes.
It's like, if you want to really PvP, you better really PvP. You better be good at it. Otherwise.
It's like, don't PvP your own faction. Go PvP the other factions. But I just think it's so cool that like you fly, and I guess the problems they used to have like when it first launched was people would camp the LZs and then they would just shoot the players as they were getting off the helicopter. But they eventually patched it to where when you're on the helicopter, you're invincible. And you could also shoot while you're on the helicopter. So I guess there's some people who, if they're like flying a really far distance because it's all in real time and they're going back to base, you could shoot people on the ground if you were good enough. But I just think that's really cool. Like to in real time go out to the mission objective and like other players can see it. It's like because there's like I like games like Ghost Recon Wildlands. I thought was a ton of fun, and it's like a big open map. And this is kind of like essentially a multiplayer version of that. And yada yada. But it is, and it's doing the missions are fun, like I said, because they don't tell you where everything is, and you can still find items on enemies. Like keys are super important. Like, oh, this key is very good. You tell them like, oh, take this key. This key's real good here. But yeah, it's fun to play. I got to play some more of it. But yeah, that's what I've been playing. I need to pick up some. I'm going to be streaming later today, probably most of the day because the family's still down in Disneyland. I was only able to go for a couple days, so I might stream that. I gotta, get that cable so I could try to stream it on my laptop while I play on my PC and not have to worry about turning down the resolution and all the other stuff. But it's fun so far. I've only put like 6 hours into it, and yeah, that's basically all I've been playing. Oh man, so I had some new earbuds that I purchased because I forgot mine at work the other day, and I was like, I can't go without my earbuds at work. I'm sorry, I like ran up to Wally World because it's right near work. Got some.
I get that feeling. That's the worst.
I keep 2 pairs of headphones in my bag at all times.
I have 2 pairs. The problem is that like I also use one of them to like if I want to listen to something on my phone when I go to bed, I use that same one of the pairs as well. And then I forgot to charge the case of my other ones because I hadn't used them forever. And then, so they were dead. And I was like, damn it. And I was like, well, now I have no headphones. And I didn't have the charging cable for it, which is fine. Those had to be trashed. They're like so old, like they don't hold a charge anyways. And the other ones were, the left one, I think, was losing its charge quicker than the right one. On the one person, I just bought like the same version of it, but the new one. Anyways, I when I was using them, like I guess because we were watching like whatever the other World of Color is that they have in California Adventure, and I had no music playing. So after a while, it's like, it turned off. One of the buds turned off because it had been idle for so long. And then I went to go, okay, let's turn it back on. So I was trying to figure out, like, in most cases, earbuds are like Bluetooth buds. You like, if you hold down on it, you can turn them on and off after a while. I'm like, that's how the old ones worked. And I was like, okay, let's try this. I was holding down one of the earbuds, and then all of a sudden the earbuds like, beware. And then it beeped, and then like I could hear more, like it did like open comms on the earbuds. And I was like, what?
Hey,
beware. And then I held it down again. And then it's like, be aware, off. And I'm like, oh, you said be aware. I was like, why are you telling me to beware?
Like, you just look around like, I gotta go.
You're like, what the hell?
That would be a great little horror movie thing right there.
Yeah.
It's like a classic. I love that.
But yeah, I didn't even realize they had like a pass-through and noise cancellation functionality on it. Because I just assumed it was like, okay, it's the refresh of the ones I already got. So I gotta find the manual because I think I might have tossed it and look up and see what all the button presses are. But yeah, I just thought that was funny. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we can go ahead and call it there. I know we got some. I'm looking forward to. I was gonna pick up Sniper Elite Resistance, but I haven't even finished Sniper Elite 5, so I could just go back to that and work on Resistance. But Atomfall comes out in March. I'm looking forward to that. A lot of games.
Atomfall and Avowed both come out soon, which I'm kind of excited about both of those.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because we got a couple games coming out soon. This is not what I wanted. I don't want movie releases. I want game releases.
I know that I think I was complaining about this in Discord. Hello Kitty Island Adventure came out on Switch. Super excited. Oh my god, so excited. I can finally play it without basically stealing Michael's iPad for extended periods of time. It's only out digital. And the physical version doesn't come out until middle of March. So
they have different releases for the physical and digital.
That's
so weird.
Did this too, and I almost waited for the physical version of Fantasian, but it came out like 3 days before we were leaving for Arizona in December. So I was like, I can get it at the beginning and play it for a good beginning of the month, play it for a good 2 solid weeks, or I get it before our trip and I don't really get to get into it that much. So I ended up getting the digital version, but I'm going to get the physical version at some point just because I want to give them more money, have more money to make more games like this. But this is now the second time that this has happened where a game, oddly enough, both originally Apple Arcade games have come out digital only, and then like a month later the physical version comes out. If this is a trend, I'm going to riot and I'm going to do crimes about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely the movie model that's been going on for a bunch of years now.
It's so annoying. Let me have my physical media.
Yeah, it's strange. Yeah, I didn't realize Crypt of the Necrodancer got a sequel. Rift of the Necrodancer comes out on the 5th. I didn't know that. But yeah, like Civ 7 comes out on the 11th. I'm waiting to see that because I like Civ, but from what I've heard from the casuals, that it seems like they changed a lot. But I haven't watched like any full thing on how it works. I mean, not that it will necessarily dissuade me away because I like Civ in general, but I don't know if I'll get that right away. Yeah, but yeah, Avowed is the 18th. Monster Hunter Wilds is the 28th. 2 Point Museum. Interesting. I didn't realize there was Fragpunk comes out on the 6th. Okay. And then let's see here. Damn, MLB The Show, the 2025 comes out on the 18th. And then Assassin's Creed Shadows comes out on the 20th of March. I'll look forward to that. Yeah, Atomfall is March 27th. It's not a lot of time between those two games. But yeah, a lot of stuff coming out I'm looking forward to. South Midnight's in April, but I'll probably just wait till it comes to PlayStation. Yeah, well, and then Doom in May. And there's this game called Roadcraft coming out in May that I'm interested in. It's like a sim game, but it's like, like a natural disaster comes through, destroys town, you come back and you like rebuild the town. Essentially, you clean up the stuff and then you help build it back up. I remember when the trailer came out, it was like before the hurricanes, they hit the East Coast. And I was like, I might have to try out one of those, a sim game. It's like, if this is just fixing stuff up, setting up resource routes and whatnot, I'm like, this could be fun. So,
did you ever play Pacific Drive? I know that you bought it, but
I streamed it for a couple hours, but I haven't gone back to it. I kind of like, because my idea was I was going to play that like a day and then play Prince of Persia the next day and then play that the next day and yada yada. But I got so sucked into Prince of Persia that I only played like a couple sessions of Pacific Drive.
Yeah, did I say Pacific Rim? You know what I meant.
Yeah, you said Drive.
Yeah, I played a couple hours. I got to go back to it. It's one of the things I want to go back because I did have fun playing it. I wish I got it on PC instead of PlayStation, but it was just, I think I got it on sale. That's why I picked it up on PlayStation. But yeah, I had fun with that. It's fun going out and getting resources and stuff coming back. I'm just curious, like, how much more is that loop going to expand as I keep going? But yeah. All right, well, we'll go ahead and call it there. So yeah, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Isli. Thank you, Zai, for joining.
Yep.
And we'll see you all next time.
Later.
Bye.
Before I go